Hakadosh Boker Or Masechet Nazir Daf Kav Chet Amud Aleph 2881. We're going to start from the Mishnah, even though we did the Mishnah yesterday. We're going to do the Mishnah one more time. Nizrak Alea Echa Min Adamim. Imagine right now a person comes and this is a woman that she makes herself into a Nazirah. And by making herself into a Nazirah, she came and it passed the entire month. She comes and they sprinkled one of the bloods of the Korbanot. Remember, there's going to be three different Korbanot: Hatat, Ola, and a Shelamim. They came and they sprinkled one of the bloods. The second they sprinkled one of the bloods, you could not do afarat nedarim, which means the husband only found out later. But remember, if it already passed the same day, biyom shom'o, so anyway he can't do afarat nedarim. Here it only came out that he heard after the month. And all of a sudden, they come and they say, by the way, do you know your wife made herself into Nazira? What? What are you talking about? No. Afarat nedarim. 1 second, but it all depends. Why? If they came and they already sprinkled the bloods, it does not help anymore. Afarat nedarim. Rabbi Akiva says, "Afilu nishchata alea acha mikol habehemot, enu yochol hafer." Says Rabbi Akiva, not only the sprinkling of one of the bloods on the mizbeach, right? Because remember, there's three korbanot. Even shahita, the second that you slaughter one of the animals, kaddish, that's it. You cannot do any more. Hafarat nedarim. Obviously, the Gemara is going to explain the machloka between Rabbi Akiva and Tanakama. What is the difference between shahita and zrika? Okay, very important. Fine. But Medvan says the Gemara, what are we dealing with? Where the husband cannot do afarat nedarim, betiglacha tatara. When we're talking about the end of the Nazirut, meaning the end of the Nazirut after the 30 days, she comes and she's going to be doing this. Aval betiglacha tatuma. But what happens if she became tmeah met in the middle of the shloshim yom? Meaning in the middle of the 30 days, she became tmeah. So she made herself into a Nazirah. The husband did not know. She became Teme'ah, and now she has to come and she has to start the purification process. And then after she's going to continue. Because remember, since it was in the middle, she became Teme'ah, she has to continue the process of Nazirut. So here, Betiglacha Tatum'ah, which means that she has to come and she has to take off all her hair, and she's going to come and she has to bring the Korbanot, right? And here we're talking about the Korbanot, which is basically the Ken, right? Which is the Hechal Ola Hechal Chatat. Even if the blood was sprinkled on the mizbeach, yafet, he could do afarat nedarim. Why? Shehu yachol lomar, because he could say, "If be'isha menuvelet." I don't want a woman that she's disgraced. What does that mean?
The day of Yom Shemor has to do the same day within 24 hours.
Rabbi or Rabbi Meir, right? Rabbi Omer, af betiglachat tara yafet. Even in tiglachat tara, you could do afarat nedarim. Shehu yachol lomar if be'isha megalachat. Because he could say, I don't want a woman that she's completely shaved. What does that mean? Even after the 30 days, right? You're going to say, okay, but what difference does it make? She already did the 30 days in Nazirah. She separated herself from wine. She didn't go to the cemeteries. She didn't go to funerals. Fine. So what's the big deal? It's already after the 30 days. No. Says Rabbi or Rabbi Meir, whichever, but there's two different opinions over here in the Girsaot. He comes and he says, when it says over here, Rabbi, if it's Rabbi, it's Rabbi Yudan Nasi. If it's Rabbi Meir, it's obviously Rabbi Meir, right? Rabbi, right, or Rabbi Meir comes and he says that at the end of the day, a person doesn't want his wife, right, without hair. You have to remember that the hair is the beauty of a woman, right? Since it's the beauty of a woman, we conceal the hair, right? It's only for her husband. It's not supposed to be for any single person. And therefore we come and we cover the hair because the beauty is the hair. You could take the most beautiful woman in the world and come and you shave her head off. Now come and see if she's going to win a beauty pageant. At the end of the day, she was very beautiful beforehand, but the beauty is the hair. And therefore he comes and he says, I don't want a woman without hair. So therefore, even if it's going to be at the end, Mama, she already did the 30 days and she already sprinkled the blood and everything. He said, no, I don't want. You know why? Because now they're going to have to come zoop. And remember, by the way, the tiglachat is completely, you understand? We're talking about the hair and the body. Yeah, I understand. Fine, so that was the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, this is where we left off yesterday. Matnitin, our Mishnah, Dela ke Rabbi Eliezer, is not going to be like Rabbi Eliezer. The Rabbi Eliezer, but it's going to be Rabbi Eliezer. Ha'amar, he said, Tiglacha me'akevet. What does that mean? According to Shittat Rabbi Eliezer, this is going to be a Gemara later on in 46a. There the Gemara says, Tiglachat is me'akevet, not to drink wine. What does that mean? Even after you came and you brought all the korbanot, you cannot drink wine or you cannot do anything until after she shaves her head. Or the Nazir shaves his head, right? Which means the tiglachat is me'akevet. Me'akevet means mamash. It impedes. You cannot do anything else afterwards. You passed the 30 days, you brought the korbanot, nada, until tiglachat. Tiglacha me'akevet. The keven de lo gilcha, so ever since she did not do any type of tiglachat, asira bechamra, she's still going to be asur and drinking wine. The keven de itla nivul. Now, since there's going to be an inui of nivul, because she can't drink wine whatsoever, matzi mefer. The husband could still do, right, inui. He could still do hafarat nedarim because there's inui nefesh. You remember there was one of the shitot that when can a husband do hafarat nedarim? Only things which are inui nefesh or dvarim shebeno levena, between him and her, meaning something obviously personal, or things that have inui nefesh. But if she's going to come and she's going to say, you know what, she's going to refrain from having a certain cracker. So whatever, that's nothing, or whatever the circumstance.
It's not going to affect
so it's
not
the religion, and it's on nefesh. So therefore, it's not going to be. It's not going to be what? It's not going to be inui nefesh. You cannot do hafarat nedarim. So therefore, why is it that we learned in our Mishnah that the husband cannot do hafarat nedarim even after the sprinkling of the blood? Obviously, our Mishnah is not like Rabbi Eliezer, but rather like Chachamim that argue on Rabbi Eliezer, and they hold that immediately after bringing the korbanot, she's allowed to drink wine. And therefore, there's no inui nefesh. So since there's no inui nefesh, so therefore the husband cannot do hafarat nedarim, right? We're not actually not goreses, but that was actually going to be the machlok between Rabbi Akiva and the Tanna Kama. Kavchet Amubet 28b says the Gemara Tana Didan Savar. Our Tana of our Mishnah, the Tanna Kama holds, given these didikal adam, once you already threw the blood, laltar sharia bechamra, immediately you become permitted in drinking wine. And he says here, you're not going to have any more nivul. The nivul is the inui nefesh that she's not allowed to drink wine. Rabbi Akiva holds, even if you did shechita, you cannot do hafarat nedarim, mishum hefsed kodshim, because then you're making the kodshim lose out, right? Because then the meat will not become permitted, right? So therefore, if the meat is now not going to become permitted, but rather everything has to go to become burnt, so you're wasting kodshim. Wasting kodshim means the second that you do the shechita, now you do hafarat nedarim, kaddish. You can't do anything with the animal anymore. Because the animal is not an animal for a nazir anymore. He just did hafarat nedarim, so there's nothing left. So what do you do with the animal? You burn it. So you're going to burn the animal that's hefsed kodshim. Because of hefsed kodshim, says Rabbi Akiva, you're not allowed to do hafarat nedarim once the shechita has been done. Okay? Done? Everyone understood? One more time. Once you do shechita, you can do hafarat nedarim. Okay? Fine. Matkif la Rabbi Zera, ask Rabbi Zera, v'amai, why? Lizrok daman shelo lishmam yatid basar la b'achila. Take the blood, purposely throw it lo lishma, right? But rather for a nedava and not for the purpose of the nezira. V'yatid basar b'achila. And then what's going to happen is, since you just sprinkled the blood lo lishma, so now what happens is it's going to become permitted to eat, and then there's no hefsed kodshim. Basically, we just found the way out of eating the animal. How do you eat the animal? You just did shechita. Once you did shechita, kaddish. He says, no, you know what you do? Take the blood, sprinkle it as a nedava. Shelo lishma. Not for a nezirut korban, but nedava. Once you do it that way, now you're allowed to eat the animal. If you're allowed to eat the animal, there's no hefsed kodshim anymore. So says the Gemara, Milo Tanya, didn't we learn kivsei atzeret? What about kivsei atzeret? Remember that we're talking about now the shlamim which is brought in shtei alechem and chag hashavuot. Remember, the majority of the korbanot in the Beit HaMikdash were actually matzah. What does it mean matzah? They were not chametz, right? What was chametz? In the korban lachme todah, when you bring the todah, there were 40 loaves. 10 of those 40 loaves was chametz, plus the shtei alechem on shavuot. Shtei alechem on shavuot was brought out of wheat, and it was bread, right? Remember, korban ha'omer was a seorim, was barley, right? And it was going to be on Pesach, but on Shavuot we became human beings. So we have wheat, not barley, and it's going to be bread, shtei alechem. So it's chametz. So he says, if you came and you take the kivsei atzeret, so we're talking about the sheep of the Shavuot, which is supposed to be brought down as the korbanot, with the shtei alechem. You did the shechita shelo lishman, or shechita lifnei zmanan, or you came and you did the shechita before the proper time, before the chag, or leachar zman, or after the proper time, after the chag. Hadam mizarek, you have to sprinkle the blood on the mizbeach. And you're allowed to come, you're allowed to eat the meat. If it's going to be Shabbat, that you actually came and you slaughtered the animal, lo yizrok, right? Obviously you did it by mistake, yeah, but what happened is that you're not going to sprinkle the blood. If you did sprinkle the blood, So then you're allowed to come, right? Because usually you're not allowed to bring the emunin on Shabbat until Motzei Shabbat, right? Nevertheless, the Braita says the Kivsei Atzeret, which were done Shechita, not the proper time, you're allowed to sprinkle the blood Shalol Lishman, even though, right, that you weren't allowed to do that Lechatechila. So because of that, so why is Rabbi Akiva coming in and saying that it's said Kochim after Shechita, sprinkle the blood Shalol Lishma, and once you sprinkle the blood Lo Lishma, now you're allowed to eat the meat. And if you're allowed to come and eat the meat, so then there's no problem anymore. Yeah? So says the Gemara, Amre, we said, Id shachat ola o shlamim achenam. You're right. If they did the shchita to the ola or the shlamim, you could do that. Remember, there were 3 korbanot the Nazir has to bring. Hatat, ola, and shlamim. If it was the ola and shlamim that you first slaughtered first, that's tzodek. Me'achuz, you're right. He says, then you could do that. Sprinkle the blood shalol lishman, right? No, the chatat was a meal. Right. Yeah, so he comes and he says, Elahacha b'maiskin, and here what are we dealing with? Right? The olah was only a male. If I remember correctly, I think shlamim could be both. The chatat was female. The olah was a male, and the shlamim, if I remember correctly, could be both. If I remember correctly. Again, don't quote me on that, but if I remember correctly. Right? Elahacha b'maiskin, what are we dealing with? Kegon sheshachat chatat bereisha. Here we're talking about you did the shechita on the chatat at the beginning. Now what happened was you did the shechita on the chatat and you didn't sprinkle the blood. So now here you have said kochim, because remember the olah or the shlamim you could bring it as a nedava. Can you bring a chatat as a nedava? No. So if you cannot come and bring it as a nedava is a present. Since you cannot come and bring it as a nedava, so it doesn't help. So if you came and you did the chatat at the beginning, no, you have Efsed Kochim. The other 2, there's no Efsed Kochim. Why? Even if you slaughter the olah or you slaughter the shlamim, doesn't matter. Take the blood, sprinkle it l'shem nedava, shelo lishman. That's what I mean, shelo lishman, not for the sake of what you brought it for, but rather as a nedava. And now you can eat the basar. Bon appetit. But here you can't do that because once you did the chatat, kaddish, there's nothing else what to do now. You can bring the blood as a nedava. That's it. So now you have to burn the entire chatat. If you're going to burn it, that's Efsed Kochim. So because that, Rabbi Akiva says that you cannot do it.
Well, that was burnt all anyway.
So he comes and he says like this. So here we're talking about that you did the chatat in the beginning. As we learned in Mishnah, in Gileach alachat mishloshtan, if you came and you did the tiglachat, right, on one of the 3, which means you only brought one of the 3 korbanot, and then you did the tiglachat, what happens? Yatsa. You're going to be tzedei chubah, the tiglachat, right? Why? Because in each one of them, you already finished them. Okay, so therefore, that's what he comes and he finishes off by coming and saying that really be'emet, if she did the tiglachat on one of the 3 korbanot, even though she didn't bring all 3, you're going to be tzedei chubah, the tiglachat. We're talking about in the Mishnah where it says, "Memed v'luim tiglachat hara v'tiglachat huma yafeh." But Rabbi Meir, here it does have the Gesar Rabbi Meir, Omer, "Filu tiglachat hara yafeh, mipnei sheyachol lomar yifshi be'isha ben gulachat." Tanakama, what's the shita of Tanakama? Why is it that the husband cannot be mefer after the sprinkling of the blood, and he doesn't hold like Rabbi Meir that he doesn't want the woman that she's shaved off? So Malachai, he says, "If why you have pe'anochrit, right? A woman, she could put on a wig, right? And if she could put on a wig, so what's the difference? Yeah, that's what he comes and he says. What's the difference? She covers herself with a wig, and she looks like a woman that she has hair. Okay, so
the eyebrows.
He comes and he says, by the way, some people they bring a smach from this Gemara, right? Mutar pe'anochrit, right? That's what they bring down, right? What? Pe'anochrit. כתוב פה, אתה לא קראת. Pe'anochrit. אפשר בpe'anochrit. Yeah, and therefore she looks like she has hair. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Meir comes and he says, he says, bepe'anochrit, aydi dezuama lo nichale. He says, you know why the husband doesn't want the pe'anochrit? He says, you know why? Because the pe'anochrit is a wig. No, so why is it nochrit? Because nochrit means from another woman. From another woman. Lav davka nochrit. From another woman. Misear amiti from another woman. Misear what?
אז לא היה סינתטי, תזכור את זה.
No, it wasn't synthetic. They took, the wig was made from someone else's hair.
אתה יכול להגיד אולי מחיות, זה אופציה אחרת.
לא, הם עושים את זה היום, לא משיער אמיתי.
זה היום.
זה לא עובד יוסף. פה אנחנו לומדים גמרא. Okay? So the Gemara says, Rabbi Meir holds that bepe'anochrit, once it's going to be zuama, which means At the end of the day, she's going to be sweating. It's not her natural hair. So it's not the same thing. So therefore, obviously, he doesn't want the same thing. That means even he would prefer that she has natural hair and not the hair of Pe'anochrit. It says on Mishnah 28b, Ha'ish madiret beno benazir. A man could make his son, obviously we're talking about a minor, into a nazir. He could just say, Yeh beni nazir, right? Or he comes and he tells his son, Tekabel al atzmicha nazirut, right? And basically it's going to actually work. Okay? So he comes and he says, now the father has to bring the korbanot. Obviously, now if he becomes tameh, the father has to bring the korban nazirut of tumah. Because he's the one that's in charge of the child. But a woman cannot do so. The reason is going to be brought down in the Gemara. Keitzad says the Gemara, how does a person come and make his son into a nazir? He comes and he says, obviously we're talking about that the son is keeping quiet and he's not rejecting. So he says, but gilach, or shegilchu krovav, or micha, or michu krovav, obviously it doesn't work. Meaning, if right now, right, he went and he took a haircut, or they went and they gave him a haircut, or he rejected it, he renounced it, or his family members renounced it. So in all these cases, it's not going to be a nezirut. If right now he had an animal which was separated, meaning he had the three animals which was separated, and then what happened is that it was batel the nezirut, and now you cannot bring it. So a chatat tamut. Again, remember, whenever a chatat is not going to be brought, so therefore it's going to be considered like a chatat shemetu be'alea or nitkapru with another kapara, with another animal, and therefore they're going to bring, right? And therefore what happens is that it's going to be tamut, it has to die. Va'ula tikarevola, the ola can be brought as an ola, the shamim can be brought as a shlamim. V'nechalim yom echad. However, though usually a shlamim is shnei yamim v'layla echad, like a hotel, 2 days and 1 night. However, here though, the shlamim will only be eaten as yom echad in order to make the differentiation. Men tunim. Huh?
You're going to eat the chatat?
No, we're first of all, chatat you do eat. But we're not talking about the chatat now. Now we're talking about the shlamim.
No, that's my question. It's sent lamut, but can
no. There it's tamut. There it's mamash, it dies. Right? There it goes to death. It's not brought at all. It goes to death. The olah is brought as an olah. Shlamim is brought as shlamim, but there's certain rules about how do you eat the shlamim. It's different than the regular shlamim. Now, usually whenever the nazir comes, he also has to bring the lechem, which are the chalov v'rekikim, that is brought with the nazir. Here you do not bring them. Okay. Now we're going to go back to what we mentioned a few days ago. Hayulo ma'ot satumim. What happens if he has money that was satum? Again, what was satum? He designated for his nazirut, but he didn't designate for which korban. Meaning there's 3 sacrifices. He didn't say this money is this. No. He just said we've got money. This is the money for the nazirut. So hayulo ma'ot satumim yiplu leneva. Ma'al nefurashim. What happens if he had money? This is designated for a chatat. This is designated for an olan. This is designated for the shlamim. You have to throw the money of the chatat yam hamelech. You're not allowed to benefit from it, which means it's sul bana'ah, but there's no me'ilah. Right? That means if you benefited from it, there's no consecrated, there's no benefiting from consecrated property, and therefore you don't bring a korban me'ilah, and you don't have to bring the extra fifth. The me'olah yavi olah. If it's the money of the olah, you bring it as an olah mo'alim by, and there's me'ilah in them. Okay. Says the Gemara. The Gemara says, Ish in, aval isha lo. It says in the Mishnah, Ha'ish madiret benon benazir, but not Ha'isha. My tama. Why is it that only a man could make his son into a nazir? Why cannot the mother? Why doesn't the mother have the same jurisdiction over the child that she could also make this child into a nazir? Says the Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan says, Halacha ibn nazir. It's Halacha Moshe Sinai. Halacha Moshe Sinai. That's it. The what? It's only going to be the father. Okay, fine. Rabbi Yochanan comes and he says, which means, what's the reasoning? Why? For chinuch. The father is doing it in order to be mechanech, to educate his child. So since he's doing it to educate the child, so that's why he's going to do it. So says Gemara, so 1 second, so also the woman should be the exact same halacha. Right? So Kasavar, so he holds chayav lechanech, right? Aish chayav lechanech beno mitzvah, v'neisha chayav lechanech benaz. He says, no, the father is only obligated, not the mother. Okay.